This is Jablam Hockey with your hosts, Peter Wojcicki and Paul Swinbeck. Welcome to our pre-trade deadline episode. Yes, it's Jablam Hockey with your hosts, Peter Wojcicki, and I am with
Paul Swinbeck. How's it going, everybody?
Welcome to our special episode, our trade deadline episode. We're going to be talking about all the big names, the top 10 big names. We're also going to be contacting some of our Team ISO guys. We've got Kyle Morton on the show from Canes Country. We've got Clark Rasmussen from DetroitHockey.net. We have Alex Chauvancy from Devil's Army blog, and we also have Calvin from Die by the Blade. They're going to be talking about their teams and their players that could be moved. And then Paul and I will finish up with some roundup. Paul, first off, before we start, your Pens. What is a big hole that you would like them to fill?
The back end. We need defensemen.
There's a huge hole right now. It's not a small hole. It's a black hole, and it seems like it's growing.
Yeah, we got our top 4 guys are gone. Thankfully, we picked up Ron Hainsey, so
yeah,
that fills a little bit of the void. But I think we need more.
We need at least maybe one more.
Yeah,
perfect.
And nothing crazy like Shattenkirk or not a big name. Just a guy that can fill a hole and play a 7th or 8th, sit on the bench during playoffs, sit in the press box during playoffs even. So nothing big, nothing big.
All right, before we get into the interviews and see what those guys think they're going to move to get some of their players, go on our website. We're going to have our special episode on there. We're going to post the names that we're talking about on our website. And, of course, we've written some blogs. I've already written the top 10 biggest trade deadline moves of the current decade. And I think even our pal Brett, who's also writing our blogs for us, he will also have a special trade deadline blog for us there. All right, let's get to our first guest. Time to welcome back to the show Clark Rasmussen from DetroitHockey.net. And Clark, first off, how is the feeling around having a team that's made the playoffs, 25 straight seasons? And it looks like they won't make the playoffs now.
It's definitely a new feeling, but I think there's a lot of people that are accepting of it, know that this is what's going to help bring in the next generation, get some new draft picks, kind of refresh the pipeline and get right back at it in the coming years, hopefully next year even. But, a couple down years are probably expected at this point.
Yeah. Thomas Vanek, he's been playing pretty well for the Wings, and it looks like he probably will be moved.
Yeah, he's probably the top player that they have available right now. He's been great this season when he's been healthy, and he's only on a 1-year deal, so he's cheap for somebody to pick up who's making a push out there. So he's your traditional rental, and he could bring back something pretty nice for the Wings, especially since they're talking about bringing him back next summer already. So you let him go for a few months, get something back, and then bring him back anyway. It's a great deal for Detroit.
For sure. What do you think they could get for him?
It really depends. We're not hearing a lot out of the Detroit media about what Ken Holland is looking for in any of this. We've never seen Ken Holland do a trade deadline sale before. So it's really is he looking for prospects? Is he looking for draft picks? We don't know.
On the back end, is Brendan Smith available?
I think he has to be. That's another player that they're talking about extending him. They like him. He's been around. He's not a prospect anymore. He's a known quantity. But you got to take a look at the defense that the Wings are going to have next year. Even excluding him, assuming they don't lose a defenseman to Vegas, you've got 7 guys signed or restricted this summer. you can't keep Smith around anymore. The logjam's too much, and he could bring in something like Hainsey brought in for Carolina earlier today, and that's something the Wings can't pass up at this point.
Mm-hmm. And then is Ott probably available?
If I'm the Wings, I make him available, but I never liked the signing in the first place, so it's really easy for me to say that. But he's another guy who's going to be unrestricted this summer, so why wouldn't you make him available? And if he brings in anything, that's a bonus.
Yeah. All right, and then last but not least, is there any other players maybe rumored?
The one name that gets thrown around quite a bit, and quite a bit is still pretty small, is Drew Miller, who cleared waivers a few weeks ago and has been in Grand Rapids. He's on a 1-year deal. He's another one of those guys like Steve Ott that teams always like to add at the deadline to give them a vet with some grit. He cleared waivers, so obviously people weren't jumping to grab him, but that could also be you didn't want to bring in an extra body without shipping somebody out. So he might be available. And then the only other real name to look at is Tomas Jurko, who is restricted this summer. He has not been getting playing time in Detroit. He apparently asked for a trade earlier this year, so this might be the time that they do something with that. But it's been pretty quiet with regards to his name, so who knows there.
Perfect. All right, Clark, thanks for coming on the show, for helping us with our pre-trade deadline episode. You can follow Clark on Twitter at Detroit Hockey 96. Thanks for coming on, Clark.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We've got Calvin from Die by the Blade now on this show. Calvin, first, the big trade talk is Evander Kane. What's going on there?
Well, as right now, nothing's going on. I think the biggest pieces that are probably going to move before the deadline are from the Avs, probably Duchene or Landeskog.
Yeah.
But sounds like Sakic wants like way too much. So, Tim Murray is waiting, obviously, for someone to come to him with a slightly, lower offer than what the Avs want. It would be foolish for the Sabres to not listen to any offers for Kane. Tim Murray hasn't said either way, whether he'd let him go or not. Obviously, the Sabres, they have some needs. We could use a top pair defenseman. That would be huge. So, and again, Kane, one of the hottest players in the league right now. I think he's like one of the top 5-on-5 players since November. 20 even strength goals. Again, come playoffs, that's the stuff that really matters. Again, he can, he throws the body around. He can play a physical game. So, I think Sabre Nation is split. Do we trade him? This is probably the highest value you'll get for him. He's been out of trouble for about 6 months, which is pretty good. So, is this the time to sell him? But those goals are great too. The Sabres right now, we're not that loaded offensively. I mean, we've got a few good pieces in place: Eichel, Reinhardt, Okposo, O'Reilly. Again, we lose Kane now, and it's kind of we're waiting on prospects to step up. So, I think Tim Murray waits till the deadline. I think he waits for a good offer. I think he sells him for nothing less than a top pair D-man and probably a blue chip prospect too.
Yeah. And that's weird.
On the back end, do you think Kulikov is going to go?
Yeah, so Kulikov, Franson, both of them. I mean, they have expiring contracts end of the season. Franson he's good. He's got some offensive potential, but he is slow. He is very slow. So does a team take a gamble on him? To maybe be they're like the third pair D and second power play quarterback. Maybe Kulikov is, I think, more interesting. So he's had a horrible season at the Sabres. He got injured very early. I think took a lot of time coming back from it. He's been injury prone most of the season. I think he has like 2 or 3 points on the season, which is like it's pretty terrible. A change of scenery might work out for him. Again, looking at the two defensemen who've been traded so far, I would have picked either of these two guys to go before him. So, again, maybe a second rounder would do it for either of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And is there any other piece you think that could be traded? Is it maybe one of the goaltenders?
Not so much the goalies. Again, Leonard, I think we paid a lot for him, but he's a Tim Murray guy, and I don't see him giving up on him so soon. Nielsen, again, just this dime a dozen backup goalies like him, who I think might be interesting for, again, a team that's looking to make a push in the playoffs, would be a couple of gritty forwards we have. I'd say Brian Gionta, and maybe Marcus Foligno. Gionta's turning 38, but he's had a pretty decent season. I think he's got like about 12 goals, close to 30 points. So that's some good veteran leadership there. He said he wants to stay. He's got a no-trade clause with a list of 5 exceptions that only he and Tim Murray know. So if one of those 5 teams comes knocking with maybe a second rounder, maybe he pulls the trigger. I mean, that would be a good way to sort of finish off his career. He won a cup very early in his career and probably looking to end with one. And then Marcus Foligno could be an interesting one too, I think. Again, through his dad, obviously he's linked to the city of Buffalo. He's very popular. He hasn't gotten too many points. I think he has about 16 on the season. He's not going to bring in a first rounder or something, but he does good work. I mean, he fights. He's physical, does the dirty work in the corners, as the saying goes. He could be, I think, useful on a contender, maybe on the bottom 6.
Yeah. All right. So there's a few pieces there that could be moved, and very possibly one of the or 2 of those defensemen. Yeah,
I'd say so. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Calvin. Thank you for coming on the show. You can follow him on Twitter, Mr_Faded_Glory, and of course at Die by the Blade. Thanks for coming on the show, Calvin.
Thanks, guys.
All right, now we have Alex Chauvancy on the show from Devil's Army blog. Alex, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on again.
Perfect. And let's get into it. Kyle Quincy, is he one of the names rumored to maybe go somewhere?
Yeah, definitely. He's on an expiring contract, and I don't think the Devils really have any long-term plans with him. So, with a lot of teams looking to add defensive depth for the stretch run, I would think he's probably a pretty good bet to be on the move come Wednesday.
Yeah. Paul, would you like a Quincy on the Penguins?
No, we need bodies. Our injuries are ridiculous for Pittsburgh, so any defenseman would be better than what we're playing with. I hope we got Ron Hainsey, so that'll help.
And then I saw Trevor Daley went down today.
Yeah,
I think Chris Letang has an injury too.
Yeah, Daley and Mata are out for 6 weeks, and then Schultz is coming back from a concussion, and Letang is day-to-day. So our top 4 are dwindled. So
yeah, that's rough stuff. I think Quincy, he'd probably be a pretty good fit for Pittsburgh considering all the injuries they have right now. And I'm actually kind of interested to see what the Devils would get in return for him after the Ron Hainsey trade, because if you look at Quincy's numbers and Hainsey's numbers, they're not that far off. I think Hainsey has 14 points in 56 games, and then Quincy has 12 in 52, I think. So at the time, I thought before that trade that Quincy wouldn't get much more than maybe a 4th-round pick, but after seeing Hainsey go to Pittsburgh for a second, has me a little optimistic that Ray Shero might be able to fetch a higher return for him.
Yeah, perfect. And then a guy that I kind of like, P. Parenteau, is probably going to be moved, and he's a good fit on maybe a second power play line and maybe some offense from like a 3rd or 4th line.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Devils got him for nothing, so they're going to be able to get whatever they get. It's a positive considering they picked him up on waivers. But a team that's looking to add a player who can basically play on every line. He can play a scoring situation. He can play a checking role. He'll give you some scoring depth on your bottom lines, and then, like you said, he can play on the power play too. So he's going to be a good fit for any team that's looking to add some scoring up front for sure.
Why has he fallen off a little bit on the Devils and ended up on like the 4th line some nights?
it's been it's been a little bit tough to explain because I guess we'll start like they've had Taylor Hall, Travis Zajac, and Kyle Palmieri together for the last 3 weeks, and that line has just been dominant. And then they found some chemistry with Pavel Zacha and Jacob Josephson and Stefan Nason. So he just kind of fell there, I guess, by chance. Not that he was really playing poorly or anything like that. But I don't think he hasn't been on the fourth line for that long. I don't think it's going to hurt his trade value too much.
Perfect. And you know what? It might, and that would be a really, really good, cheap addition to any team then for the playoffs. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm totally expecting him to be moved. Do you have any other guys that you think could be moved?
The one guy, his situation is a little tricky because of the expansion draft, but one guy I think they would like to see, maybe if they can find a taker for him, would be Mike Camilleri.
Okay.
He's having a rough season. I think he has 1 goal in his last 34 or 35 games. And he's got 1 year left on his contract at $5 million. And the problem with the expansion draft is if the Devils trade him, then they risk exposing someone like Adam Henrique or Kyle Palmieri, and that would put them way back. So if they were going to trade for Camilleri, somebody would have to come back in return that they would be able to protect in the expansion draft.
Interesting. All right. Great. Thanks for coming on the show, Alex. You can follow him on Twitter, _Chauvancy. That's CHAUVANCY 23. Alex, thanks for coming on the show again.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Now we have Kyle from Canes Country. Kyle, what is the plan with the Canes? Are they even thinking about moving anybody?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. I think the losing streak over these last couple games has moved them firmly into the sellers category instead of looking at buying like they may have been a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so they will be thinking about moving somebody. But first, before we get to any names, there was a trade a few days ago. Hainsey to the Pens.
Right.
Okay, so I guess he was just expendable?
Yeah, he's an expiring contract, 35-year-old guy. He's never made the playoffs before. He's actually among all the players in the league, he has the most active games without playing in a playoff game at 891. So I think they were doing him a favor by getting him to a team that's a lock to make the playoffs this year. I think it helps out the Penguins a lot too with the injuries to Daly and Mata that they have on the left side. Hainsey's more of a defensive guy, certainly, than Daly. Not quite as effective of a player as Mata, but he'll help their penalty kill out a lot. And I think the Canes have to be thrilled to be getting a second-round pick back for him. I think that was a good deal for both teams and for the player.
Yeah, and I think Danny Crystal was just a basic throw-in. I don't.
Yeah, just to keep the contract levels even. He'll help out in Charlotte a little bit, but I don't anticipate him cracking the big league roster anytime soon.
Well, as a Penguins fan, I thank you now that we can roster a healthy defensive core. Not too worried about his offense. I'm just need a guy that can wear a pair of skates and play some defense.
He'll have a big impact on the penalty kill for sure. I've been reading a bit that's kind of where the Penguins are looking for help. And he's a big reason why the Hurricanes had the number one penalty kill in the league.
That's
nice. Good. I like to hear that.
Perfect. All right, and then we got a few other maybe small moves that could be moved. Is Stahlberg one of them?
Yeah, Stahlberg and McClement, two guys who have been on the fourth line together this year. In Stahlberg's case, another guy who's really good on the penalty kill. His speed on the wing helps him pressure defensemen a lot. He can generate some breakaways. Definitely a useful player on the fourth line if a team who's going to be in the playoffs needs some more veteran experience and a guy who's not going to be a liability out there. I'd anticipate him returning a fourth or maybe a third rounder at best. In McClement's case, he's just not a particularly effective player at this point in his career. But if there's a GM out there who's thinking, oh, I'd like a fourth line center who I know can win faceoffs and has been around the league, then maybe he would be desirable. But I don't think you'd catch any of the more forward-thinking general managers taking too long of a look at McClement.
And then, is there any other names?
Lee Stempniak is a possibility, but I think he's going to be kept around to be exposed to the expansion draft because they need guys who meet that games played requirement to expose. So I wouldn't anticipate him getting moved unless there's a really good offer.
And what about the goaltending? you guys going to move Ward or Lack? Or just hopefully one goes to Vegas?
I saw Washington. There was a report that they're looking for a third goalie, so I guess it wouldn't be too shocking if they looked at one of them. But I just don't know who would take either of them at this point. Neither of them has had a good, strong year, really. Ward's played a lot of games, but that's just because he's the least bad option. Maybe Ward, he's won a cup. Again, maybe a general manager who's more traditionally minded would think at that or look at that and think, oh, if I had a backup goalie who had won a cup before, that could help my team. I guess it's possible that could be moved, but I doubt either of them are going to get picked by Vegas either, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Kyle, that's it. That's all we want to ask. Thank you for coming on the show. You can find Kyle on Twitter at K_Morton, MORTON 9. Thanks for coming on the show, Kyle.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Paul, we've got a top 10 list of big names. Where could they go? And what teams are maybe asking for these players? Let's start off. Let's go what I like to go in reverse. And a guy that could be moved, but he's on a team that's on the fence, is Mark Streit. Paul, who do you think could want a Mark Streit, or where do you think he could go?
I think he's going to go back to the island. The New York Islanders. They're back in a playoff position. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to go to he's going to go back home. He's going to go back to the Islanders.
Yeah. I'm thinking he's got a bit of a cap hit, so it's going to be hard to put him on a team. And because of that, I think it would be cool if he went maybe with the Rangers, the Canadians maybe. You'd fit in well over there.
Going back home once again.
Yeah, but for some reason, I think with the cap space and everything, I don't know if it will work out. So I don't know. I have a feeling he maybe go to a team, if he does get moved, maybe go to a team like the Senators.
Ooh, interesting.
So, yeah, that would be pretty interesting. What do you think?
Him and Carlson on the back end. I don't think they'd play together. I think Streit was more of a 4 or 5 guy, but that would really help Ottawa push for the playoffs.
Yeah, and then on the power play too, it would give them a good 1-2 punch there.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a pretty good move for them. And you know what? I don't know if they're going to get too much for him. Again, with a lot of these are expiring contracts, but probably at least maybe a second-round pick, maybe more. So I think the Senators have that in them. All right, next on the list is Alex Burrows. I think a top team that has a lot of offense and not much of that grit would want a Burrows. So I'm thinking a top team like the Caps would really want a guy like Burrows on any of their top 3 lines. He'd fit in well there, get them some more grit.
I have a feeling the Capitals aren't going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they're playing so well, they got chemistry through their top 3 and their fourth line. I don't think they're going to pick anybody up for a fourth line. So I think the Capitals are going to hold steady. I think he's going to go and play for Alan Vigneault for the New York Rangers.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Vigneault's going to push for him. He's going to have a say in his GM's ear and be like, "Listen, I like this guy in Vancouver."
Yeah. So, yeah, that seems like a good fit as well. All right. Then we got the captain of the Coyotes, Shane Doan.
No, I don't want him to go. No.
So a lot of them want him to stay a Coyote for the rest of his career, and especially if he finishes soon. I don't know. I think also a guy with that much veteran leadership, I think a team like the Ducks would be a good fit for him and the team. A team that already has a lot of experience and can go far, and Doan would help them put them over the edge to be a top team this playoffs.
Yeah, and everybody's going to say, oh yeah, well, Shane Doan has every right to go and find a team that he can win a cup with, and it rarely happens. It doesn't happen very often. There's like maybe 3-4 instances that it's happened, like Ray Bourque. Can you name anybody else that retired a cup champion after being with a team his entire career? Maybe just Ray Bourque.
It's tough. I can't remember. I know whenever when a team does go far, you're always wondering, who is a veteran guy on that team that might retire soon, hasn't won a cup, and you're cheering for them. I remember even like Dave Andreychuk on the Lightning and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know about like the late trade for a veteran to get him a cup. That has been kind of rare. So.
Yeah, so I would like Shane Doan to retire a Coyote the proper way and stay a Coyote, not get traded and then go re-sign a one-day contract and retire. I hope he stays in Arizona.
All right, and then next on our list is Fleury. Paul, what do you think?
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Jim Rutherford has said they would like to keep both of them, and they'll deal with it at the expansion draft, and I don't think they're going to deal him. I really don't.
Yeah, he's come out and said that they're not moving him. Maybe it's a ploy. We don't know. But if he was to be moved, I wouldn't mind if, I don't know, Jake Allen has had his weak parts of the season. He's playing better right now, but if he falters, I think a guy like Fleury, if he were to be moved, I think he would help them a lot. And we've seen Blues make moves at the deadline before 4 goalies with Miller before and et cetera. So that's a team that it's a possibility.
If you held a gun to my head and said, pick a team for Fleury to go play for, I'm a huge Marc-Andre Fleury fan. I like Matt Murray too, but Fleury, I got a jersey hanging on my wall right now. It replaced the Matt Ryan one that I took a picture of and posted on the social medias. It's now Fleury's Penguins jersey. I think I would be okay if he wore a Flames jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could cheer for him as a Flame.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. Next up we have is Patrick Sharp. He's not having such a great year this year, but he can put the puck in the back of the net for sure. I don't know.
And he brings a lot of rings to the room.
Yes. Lots of veteran leadership. The Hawks are a team that make crazy trades out of nowhere. So I'm going to say, is it possible he can go to the Hawks? I don't know. With the cap is a big hold in a lot of these trades now. So that's the only reason why I think it's going to be hard for him to maybe go there. So a question mark is there's a few rumors maybe San Jose could get Sharp.
That's where I'm going. That's where I think he's going to go.
Yeah.
They need that little bit more leadership, that a guy that's done it. San Jose just needs that little bit of push. They were so close last year. They need that little bit of push, and I think Sharp would help that out big time.
Yeah, he could easily fit on any of the lines and add some scoring punch, and Sharks would want that. All right, back to the desert. There's Verbata, very possibly being moved. He can still add some offense to any team. And I think a team that needs offense, in my opinion, a little bit more would be the Predators. I think he would fit well with the Predators and might help them if for down the stretch and trying to maybe win a round or two. I think he would be a good fit for them.
I'm going to say this is the Sharks' backup plan. They're going to go out, try and get Sharp, and if they don't get Sharp, they're going to go after Verbata. So hopefully Sharp goes before Verbata, which I think is going to happen. I think Sharp will be traded
first
before Verbata. Yeah.
Then our second on the list is Martin Hanzal from Arizona. And this is where I think the Hawks pull out a big move and get a guy like Hanzal. A center guy, a center player, fitting well, and they like to add those type of guys. And just a smart move, cheeky move by the Hawks. I think they might be able to get him.
I think he's going to go to the Canadiens. I think the Canadiens need a number 2 behind Galchenyuk, and I think that'll move Plekanec down to where he should be on the third line. So I think Hanzal would be really suited for the Canadiens.
Yeah. With the Hawks and the Coyotes, it just seems like they've made many moves together.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but I thought, okay, this could be another one of those. And of course, our number one rumored pick to be moved is Kevin Shattenkirk, the offensive defenseman on the Blues. It'd be weird for them to move him, but they really want to recoup and get some prospects and picks. So he would be a big puzzle to be piece of the puzzle to be moved to get some of that. And for me, there's a lot of rumors, and there's Bruins out there. So there's big rumors that the Bruins, and they've got a few other names that they're trying to maybe acquire. But then also there's been rumors with the Maple Leafs. And if he were to go to Leafs, I would think the piece going back would maybe be JVR. I wouldn't want that just because it's an expiring contract and you don't want that for the Leafs. But maybe it would be good, at least for this playoff rush as well, to get him. And, maybe JVR is a little bit expendable in terms of all the offense that the Leafs have. So,
I think
think?
It's wishful thinking there, Peter. If Shattenkirk got traded to the Maple Leafs, he signed a long-term contract with the Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. Would you be going out and get a Shattenkirk jersey?
Would I be getting? I don't know. Maybe. I'm still on the list to maybe get a Zaitsev one first, though.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one too.
Yeah.
I think Shattenkirk's going to go to the Rangers. The Rangers are always looking for defensemen, and I think they're gonna grab Shattenkirk. They like to go after the big name on the list.
But then, who would be the expendable name on the Rangers, though, that you would think St. Louis would want something big back? Maybe not on the blue line, but a pretty decent scoring forward then, right? So,
yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough to see what they would want for him. So it's a big piece. All right, and then we'll get into the main two other teams that will probably be moving a lot of people out. And first, we'll go on the East, and we'll go Tampa Bay. Is Ben Bishop going to be moved, Paul? You think so?
I think so. I think if Fleury doesn't go to Calgary, I think Calgary's looking for a goalie. I think they're thinking they can squeak in that last playoff spot, and a goaltender is what's holding them back. I don't think Elliott is as good as they were hoping for, so I think they'll either go after Bishop or Fleury, and hopefully they'll be able to re-sign either one of them.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to move him just because he's playing a lot better than Vasilevsky right now. And yes, you want to get something for him, but if they're going to look for the future, they might want to stay with Bishop. I don't know. I still think he should be moved. But the rumors are they're not sure right now. And if he does get moved, Flames, or even like I was saying, maybe St. Louis, if they go back with Jake Allen maybe or something like that, then he could go there. Who else do they have rumored? A big piece, and it looks like a lot of people want, is Brian Boyle. He's probably playing the best of his hockey career right now. So he's rumored to go a lot of places. I've heard the Leafs are looking for that type of player, Boyle, to be on one of their lines. But even the Blue Jackets and the Oilers. Where do you think he might go?
I'm going to go with the Oilers.
Yeah?
Yep, I think they need a little bit more grit, and he brings a lot of leadership. He went deep into playoffs with the Rangers. He went deep with the Lightning. So I think he'll definitely help a young team move into the playoffs.
You don't think the Oilers have a lot of grit with Lucic and Maroon and the rest of those guys? No, they need more.
No, and I Lucic is a different kind of grit. His is like an intimidation grit. It's not. Nobody wants to go into a corner with Lucic because he's just a big monster. Whereas people go into the corners with Boyle, but Boyle just plays. I don't know. It's a different kind of grit.
He's more tenacious.
Yeah.
So fights a little bit harder for the puck. Yep. Oh well, we'll see. So maybe he might go there. And the last but not least on Tampa is possibly Filppula could be moved. What do you think, Paul, with him?
Well, he's got a no trade, no move, so it depends on. I don't know what the stipulation is, but he is allowed to submit a 16-team trade list, so it's basically half the league.
Yeah. So all the teams that are making the playoffs.
Yeah, pretty much. Send me to a playoff team. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
New York Islanders could use it. Center depth. Maybe Montreal if they miss out on Hansel or the top centerman guys.
Yeah.
No, that's a tough one.
It is. It's a question mark. You're not too sure where he could go. All right, and then let's go to the West, and there's at the bottom of the NHL is the Colorado Avalanche. They've got lots of names rumored. Let's go. What do you have for maybe Patrick Weirkosh?
I think he might go to the Penguins. I think that might be Penguins'
good depth.
He can sit in the press box come playoff time when Daly and Mata are supposedly back. And he's not that big of a liability. He doesn't cost a lot. If they got a second rounder for Ron Hainsey, Patrick Weirkoch is not going to be a fourth rounder. He might be a fifth rounder or sixth rounder. Yeah, I'd pay for that for Weirkoch for 20 games of regular season to go. Yeah,
it probably wouldn't beat that much going the other way too. So that'd be an easy move for the Pens to make.
Yeah.
Then we got Iginla. He wants to probably go to a contender. This is probably his last year. I was thinking maybe Washington, but I don't know how they're going to fit him in with the cap. That's the big dilemma, right? So I'm thinking maybe them or maybe the Wild. We haven't mentioned them getting many players, but I think the Wild might want to get a guy with a lot of leadership and some scoring punch with Jerome.
Interesting. I am going to go with the Capitals. I said earlier that I don't think the Capitals are going to make a big splash.
Yeah.
If they do, this is the deal they're going to make, and that 50% retained salary will really help it. Like Colorado can keep a lot of salary, so that'll help Washington get in under the cap, I think. So they don't need to do much. I really don't think they have to do anything, really. But adding a Ginla maybe didn't work for the Penguins a couple of years back, so who knows?
Maybe it'll work this time. All right. There's been rumors with Grigorenko, but I think we both feel they're not going to move him. He's still got potential. He's still young. If they're making a lot of these moves, why would you move even another guy? So let's move on to the big two names. First, the captain, my boy Landy, Gabriel Landeskog. There's a lot of rumors. He could go anywhere. Both of these guys could go anywhere, but a big rumor I'm hearing is maybe he's one of those guys that maybe goes to the Bruins. He's a type of guy that the Bruins like.
Yeah.
And so I think the Bruins are at the top of this list in getting a guy like Landeskog.
And he's got a solid contract for the type of guy he is. So I think the Bostons like those kind of homer-type contracts where you take a discount, and I think Landeskog did with Colorado. And I don't get why the Avalanche want to move either one of these guys, Landeskog or Duchene. I really don't. I don't understand it. I think
they're both.
They got into trouble with Patrick Waugh as their coach, and it went downhill from there. And I can't see it helping or working for them if they move these two guys.
Yeah, same here. I think they're both great players, but things need to change sometimes, and maybe moving one of your core pieces. Maybe not both, but one of them might be a good move. And maybe if they get back from the Bruins a David Krejci, per se, that would change a lot of things, and you would still be getting back a good scoring player. For Duchene, again, lots of rumors, but the big one is the Flyers. Seems like the Flyers are in hard for Duchene, so we'll see what happens, but they're at the top of the list there.
I'm going way off the board here, and you're going to be like, what? The Carolina Hurricanes. I would love to see him in Carolina.
Wow. Yeah.
Carolina's a young team. They got a lot of prospects they could move out. They could just give a huge prospect package to Colorado to revamp their cupboard. That would be very interesting. I think it would be a lot of pieces headed towards Colorado. And they might not be able to do it with all the contracts and stuff, but it would be cool to see. Maybe Duchene for like Gauthier or something. That'd be big. That'd be crazy. Yeah,
you would be expecting a lot of pieces going back the other way as well. Even there's a rumor out there that was maybe talked about between Ottawa and the Avalanche, and Sakic pretty much asking for either of Duchene and Landeskog from the Senators if they were to maybe make a trade. The rumor was maybe Cody Ceci, a first-round pick, and maybe one of the blue-chip defensemen in either Chabot or Colin White. So, of course, you might want to hang up the phone when you hear something like that. But, yeah, there's lots of crazy rumors, and that's one of the ones out there. But, I don't know, maybe Flyers is a good one if they're looking to add a big piece to their core. But it's crazy, and you never know what could happen. All right, Paul, so you found anything interesting with all our interviews and everything and other things out there?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, a lot of the guys referencing the expansion draft.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really dive very deep into other teams' expansion options, and I know you can go on Cap Friendly and look at the protected players, but that's just doing it pretty quickly. That's not sitting there for an entire year and a half of planning. These GMs have a lot of big decisions to make, and sometimes you got to move a guy so you can protect another guy, or like Carolina, you got to keep a guy because you need so many games played players, right? I didn't even think of that crossing my mind. I went through Cap Friendly, I think 2 days ago to make a Vegas Golden Knights team, draft a team, and you protect all the players and all that stuff. They got a pretty cool tool on Cap Friendly, and you don't even think of that stuff when you have to protect players. You just boom, 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 boom. Oh, those are my 6, 8 guys, 9 guys. So I think the trade deadline is going to be a quieter trade deadline this year.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing that we can't move player A because we might lose player B at the expansion draft. So we were already, being puzzled about cap hits on certain players and they can't be moved. But now you also have to think about the expansion draft and protecting certain players and keeping a player that you might want to trade at the deadline right now to get prospects, but now you might want to keep him because you don't want to lose your other players at the expansion draft. So it is pretty interesting, and it might be a weaker trade deadline because of it. I hope not. I still hope that, hey, you know what? If one or two of those pieces get moved, like a Duchene, a Landeskog, a Shattenkirk, it'll still be pretty wild for those guys to be moved. But the other thing I found was interesting, we didn't mention Panthers, right? On getting anybody?
Yeah.
So last year, last year they added Hudler. I think they added a few pieces, and that was very surprising. So actually, wouldn't be surprised if Panthers were in on some of these guys, and they might get a Patrick Sharp or a Berglund per se. So that's another team that could be out there that might get one or two of these guys that are available.
And speaking of teams that we didn't really mention, you kind of go through the playoff teams, and Minnesota's kind of quiet, but Columbus, are they set out? They have their playoff team, and they're not going to pick up anybody. I guess you don't really think of them as a playoff team, but I'm pretty sure they're going.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're gonna want to add something to that team, and maybe more of a veteran type player is what I would think that the Blue Jackets would want going to the playoffs.
And one more note, Clark mentioned Gustav Nyquist being available or taking phone calls on Gustav Nyquist. That I haven't seen anything on it, so I thought that was pretty interesting from Clark that Nyquist is maybe available, and Chicago has called before, so that'll be interesting.
That will be interesting. And again, we want blockbusters to happen, but we also want those veteran guys to win a cup. So hopefully Iginla goes to one of those teams. And Paul, do you want Doan to be traded or not?
No.
All right. We'll leave you at that. Thank you for listening to our pre-trade deadline episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye.